for all of the brilliant work that you do to help people struggling with addiction to free themselves from the bonds of addiction and to set their lives on a productive path. Thank you as well to Minister Shandro for being here and Associate Minister Lawan. And let me just commend all of the conference organizers for Alberta's first Recovery Capital Conference. Thanks to the founders, organizers, sponsors, and speakers for bringing us this vitally important and urgently needed event to our province. In just 3 years, your great initiative has expanded to 6 Canadian cities, spanning the country from coast to coast. Clear evidence, there is, as you know, clear evidence of growing demand for your proven and effective evidence-based approaches to addressing Canada's escalating addiction crisis. And I'm delighted to be here to highlight our government's, the Government of Alberta's unequivocal commitment to help Albertans suffering from addiction to find a path to recovery. Because we want those struggling to know that we care, that help is coming, and that hope is on the way for more and better access to treatment and recovery. Now, many people in this room, and countless thousands beyond it, are living proof that addictions can be overcome. You are proof that addiction and all the health and social and personal destruction that it causes is not just a problem to be managed, but it is one that can be solved for people. You understand that effective intervention and treatment can lift people from social isolation, from poverty and self-destruction, and help them rebuild careers, restore relationships with family and friends, and regain their health and their happiness. But despite the proven success of this approach to addiction treatment, it has regrettably been crowded out and neglected in recent years by policymakers and health systems in favor of a new system focused on ineffective addiction management rather than treatment and recovery. Harm reduction efforts certainly have a place within the spectrum of public health responses to the soaring opioid death rate, but not at the expense of life-saving treatment and recovery. We should never set one up against the other. And nor should harm reduction efforts be blindly at the expense of public safety in our streets and communities and broader social impacts. We need to consider all of the social impacts on everybody affected by addiction. As we have increasingly seen, attempts to manage addictions can sometimes create a series of other social problems to which we should not be willfully blind. If we want evidence-based policy, we should not be cherry-picking data. We should look at all of the evidence, including the impact on the broader community. And that is why our government is committed to an expanded and balanced approach to fighting addiction here in Alberta. That is why we have created the position of an Associate Minister for Mental Health and Addiction, and I want to thank Jason Lawan for his great work. And I also want to, normally you're not supposed to, the elected people are supposed to take all the credit, but I want to give some acknowledgement to Marshall Smith, his Chief of Staff, for his tremendous leadership in helping to inform our government's policy on this. And this is also why we committed during Alberta's recent election campaign to invest $100 million over 4 years in this fight, plus an additional $40 million specifically to combat the opioid crisis. Now, go ahead. The Albertans here will have perhaps followed the recent McKinnon report, so you will understand that this was one of the only, this in fact was by far the largest additional spending commitment in our platform, one of the few additional spending commitments at all in a context of real fiscal challenges in this province, We're running the largest per capita deficit in the country. We're headed to $100 billion in debt. We have to make some tough choices to preserve quality public services in the future. So we made this commitment in that context where we're going to be asking a lot of departments and programs to find efficiencies. This is the only area where we are making significant additional investments. Why? Because we must do everything within our means to combat the terrible and deadly scourge of addiction and opioids in Alberta society. So, with these new resources, we will significantly expand access to treatment and recovery programs and services. As you all know, there are many pathways of recovery, and people on this journey need understanding, support, and a wide array of services to reach wellness. Recovery needs to be viewed positively as a valid, desirable, and achievable goal by the healthcare, legal, and social services systems, as well as by the broader community. We envisage an accessible continuum of care based on careful assessment of the individual's circumstances and needs that focuses on their strengths and goals and the severity and complexity of their illness, and focuses on timely access to a diverse range of recovery services that meet the highest standard for safety and quality. Now, everyone with addiction disorders should be told about all recovery treatment and support options available to them, which, I'm sorry to say, has not been adequately emphasized in the harm reduction approach. The Alberta government has I believe that the Alberta government has in the past failed adequately to fund the treatment and recovery spaces that Alberta families desperately need. Harm reduction alone is not the answer. We have seen an ever-growing population of addicted and homeless people, along with spiking overdose rates, including fatalities, across the demographic spectrum. In fact, we know that the vast majority of fatalities occur at home and are typically young men who are employed in blue-collar occupations, yet the previous government created no strategy to reach out and help them. Our government will not stand idly by while this public health and safety crisis spirals out of control in our communities, and that's why I am very pleased to announce today that the Government of Alberta will create 4,000 newly funded spaces to treat Albertans suffering from addiction. These additionally funded places will support existing and unfunded and new treatment and recovery beds, outpatient services, and medically supported detox beds provided by the nonprofit agencies that provide treatment and recovery supports. And let me pause for a moment just to say a profound word of gratitude to those of you who work in such agencies. You are unsung heroes of our society. You work sometimes in the most challenging circumstances imaginable, with people who have reached rock bottom. You suffer from compassion fatigue. You give endlessly, and often face disappointment with the results, but you don't give up. Many of you have spent years or your entire adult lives working in this space. And while we all share our frustration with the growing opioid and addiction crisis, we should also acknowledge and celebrate the many small victories, the many lives that have been saved by so many of you in this room. So thank you. Because of so many of these agencies, the beds are already in place in some cases, but are unused or underutilized because of a lack of funding. This new investment that I'm announcing today will fund those spaces and create new ones over the next 4 years. Alberta is fortunate to have a wide array of treatment facilities operated by numerous agencies, as I've said, staffed by health professionals with tremendous expertise in treating addiction. I see in the audience some folks representing some of these great operations, like Calgary's Fresh Start Recovery Centre, Go ahead, give them a hand. I understand, this seems unbelievable, that of their 50 beds, only one is funded. Poundmakers Lodge in Edmonton, which I recently had the opportunity to visit for their annual powwow, is specializing in treatment for Indigenous people, and they have 28 unfunded beds. The Thorpe Recovery Center in Lloydminster, where 70% of their beds sit empty today due to a lack of funding, and we all know about the opioid crisis in that area. The Simon House here in Calgary, where all 66 beds are currently unfunded. The initiative I'm announcing today will dramatically expand access to treatment and recovery across Alberta, including in First Nations communities. Today's announcement is an important part of a much larger strategy for attacking the addiction crisis and expanding and improving access to treatment for Albertans seeking recovery. In the weeks ahead, we will unveil a Mental Health and Addiction Advisory Council to provide expert guidance and support as we roll out further elements of the strategy. So thank you again for bringing the Recovery Capital Conference and its vision for a better, more balanced approach to these urgent public health challenges. And thank you to all the health professionals in Alberta who are on the front lines of our battle with addictions. Finally, I'd like to close by saluting all of you who are in recovery at whatever stage. And I can say I myself, our family, virtually every family I know has been affected by this. We all know how it takes tremendous courage and strength to choose treatment, tremendous will to see it through to recovery, and tremendous commitment to stay clean and sober. You are the true heroes of Alberta's battle against addiction, the inspiring role models for thousands of others who will follow your example and access Alberta's expanded treatment system. So thank you, and please carry on this brilliant work, and please know you've got support from the government and the people of Alberta. God bless you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. 4,000 treatment beds, everyone. Many people will be helped. Thank you very much. That's an amazing opportunity that will build recovery capital in this province. Much delayed, and now it's time it's going to happen. So we really want to thank this government. And thank you for the support. Myself and my committee have been working on Recovery Day, Recovery Capital for 3 years.